stories you were never meant to hear.
This is horrible.
The night shift was never meant for everyone, but for Rudy, it had become a rhythm, a quiet, mechanical heartbeat that filled the empty spaces of his life. He worked in a small factory, hidden behind the city's dying lights, a place where metal and heat spoke louder than people. He'd been there for 3 years, 3 long years of humming machines, flickering lamps, and the faint stench of oil clinging to his clothes. Even after he got home, to others, that place was suffocating. To Rudy, it was peace. He liked the silence. He liked how the sound of conveyor belts echoed like waves. Sometimes, when everyone else had gone home, he would just stand there, eyes half closed, listening, as if the machines were alive, whispering in a language only he could understand. That night, the air was thicker than usual. The fluorescent lights trembled, casting pale shadows across the floor, and beneath the metallic rhythm, something faint, something small, tapped once against the walls. He paused, listened, then continued, thinking it was nothing. He didn't know it yet, but that was the last peaceful night he'd ever have inside that factory. The next few nights passed without much change. Rudy came, worked, smoked, and went home. Routine, predictable, but something felt off. Not wrong, just different, like the air itself had started paying attention. It began when one of his co-workers, Annie, refused to stay late anymore. He used to joke about ghosts, about the lady who, according to the old staff, wandered near the back storage room. Rudy laughed at those stories, loud and careless. He said ghosts wouldn't dare appear in front of people like him. He said death itself was afraid of his laughter. That night, Annie left early, and Rudy stayed. The factory was quiet again, except for the hum of machines. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, that faint, unstable flicker that always seemed one breath away from darkness. Rudy moved between the aisles, collecting the leftover materials, and then he heard it. A faint chuckle, not from the workers, not from the radio. It came from somewhere behind him, soft, playful, almost mocking. He turned, no one. He stood still, staring at the empty corridor that led to the storage room. His chest tightened. He took a slow step forward, then another. The hum of the machines seemed to fade as his own breathing filled the space. Then he heard it. Again, that small laugh, echoing faintly in the air, this time, followed by a whisper that barely touched his ear. Rudy froze. He didn't move, didn't breathe. The voice was close, too close, but there was no one there. When he finally looked over his shoulder, he saw it, just a glimpse, long black hair, a white cloth brushing against the wall before vanishing into the dark. He stumbled back, heart pounding, but as fast as it came, the sound was gone. Only the rhythmic hum of the machines remained. He stood there for a long moment, trying to convince himself it was just exhaustion. Just his imagination, but deep down, something inside him whispered, it had started. That night, Rudy clocked out later than usual. The factory yard was already empty. Swallowed by mist. He lit a cigarette and started walking home, taking the same narrow alley he always did, a shortcut between old houses, half of them abandoned. He'd passed it 100 times before, never once felt afraid until tonight. The wind felt heavier. The air carried something, watching. He couldn't explain it, but every few steps, he felt eyes following him, from windows, from shadows, from places where no one should be. He tried to laugh it off, "Come on, Rudd, it's just your head," he muttered. But the words didn't sound like his own. They trembled. Halfway through the alley, he noticed something strange. The stray cat that usually slept near the trash pile, gone. The small prayer flag someone had, tied near the old house gate, torn, and then he heard it, a faint rustle, leaves shifting above him. He looked up. At first, he thought it was just the branches moving in the wind. Then his eyes adjusted, and he saw someone sitting there, perched silently on the tree branch, long hair cascading down, almost touching the ground, a white dress, unmoving, staring. Rudy froze for a moment. His mind refused to register what he was seeing. Then the figure tilted its head, slowly, as if recognizing him. Something cold crawled up his spine. He turned around, started walking faster, then faster still. The sound of his footsteps echoed too loud in the narrow alley. He could feel it, something behind him, following, not rushing, just following. When he reached the intersection, he stopped and hid behind a wall, gasping for air. He peeked back toward the alley. Empty. Nothing moved. For a long moment, he stood there, waiting, listening, and then he whispered to himself, "See, nothing there, just tired." But as he turned to leave, the faint sound of laughter brushed past his ear, a woman's voice, light and distant. Rudy froze again, and for the first time, he couldn't convince himself it was just his imagination. The night after that, sleep didn't come easy for Rudy. Every creak, every gust of wind outside felt too close, like the world around his small rented room was breathing. At 2 a.m., he woke up suddenly. There was a soft knock at the door, 3 times. Tock, tock, tock. He froze, staring at the doorknob. No one called his name. No sound followed, only silence. But when he looked toward the window, the curtain was swaying, though the air was still. The next morning, Rudy tried to shrug it off. He told himself maybe it was just the neighbors, maybe a stray cat brushing against the wall. He forced a laugh in the mirror before heading to work. But when he got to the factory, people started noticing something different. He looked pale, unfocused. His friends joked about it. "Don't tell me you actually saw her, Rudd." One of them laughed. Rudy didn't answer. He just smiled faintly and went back to work. That day, strange things began happening inside the factory. A wrench fell from the rack, even though no one touched it. The lights above Rudy's line flickered. A whisper slipped through the hum of machines, so faint he thought he imagined it. He dropped his tools. The sound made everyone turn, but nothing was there. By lunchtime, Rudy was drenched in cold sweat. He couldn't focus. Even the usual sound of machinery began to feel distorted, like every mechanical rhythm was hiding a voice underneath. When the supervisor asked if he was okay, he just nodded and forced a smile, but his hands kept trembling. Later that evening, as the last shift ended, he stayed behind to tidy up his station. The factory floor was quiet, only the faint buzz of the fluorescent lights above. And then someone touched his shoulder, firm, cold. He turned. Standing behind him was the same figure, hair black and tangled, face hidden, white dress faintly torn, too close, too real. Before he could react, the voice whispered near his ear, calm, mocking. A soft laugh followed, broken, echoing. Rudy's knees gave out. Everything went black. He was found later by the factory medic, unconscious near his workstation. No one else saw the woman, but everyone said the air around that corner felt colder. When Rudy woke up, he didn't say much. He just looked around quietly and whispered, "Sometimes they're just there. We live side by side. We just forget." Rudy didn't return to work for 3 days. People said he was sick. Others whispered he had lost his mind. But when he came back, he looked different, calmer, quieter, like something inside him had changed permanently. He stopped joking about ghosts. He stopped mocking what he couldn't explain. He began greeting the night guard politely. And every time he walked past the empty hallway near the storage room, he'd whisper softly, not out of fear, but out of respect. He told no one what he really saw that night, but sometimes, during his late shifts, he'd pause and glance toward the dark corner of the factory floor, as if remembering something only he could feel. Outside work, life went on. The same small room, the same narrow street, the same gang he once walked through, where the shadows still felt alive. But now, he no longer ran. He simply walked, careful, aware. Because deep down, he finally understood. Some things don't need to be proven to exist. They only need to be respected, and sometimes, mocking the unseen is enough to make it notice you.